Hi, I'm middle grade Miss G, and on my channel, I share reading experiences and teaching ideas for middle grade novels, so books for children from about 8 to 12 years old. Today, I'm going to be talking about From the Desk of Zoe Washington, which is by Janae Marks. Here's our opener. The day I turned 12, I was certain it'd be my favorite birthday yet, but then I got the letter. Suspense. So, in this book, we have Zoe Washington, who's an aspiring pastry chef. She receives a letter on her birthday from Marcus, her biological father, who's been in prison her whole life. She's never met him or spoken to him or anything. She hides this communication because she doesn't think her mom will let her communicate with him. And the question becomes, could he really be innocent, or is he as manipulative as her mother says? At the same time, she gets an opportunity to audition for a baking show on the Food Network, but she has to prove to her parents that she's ready for it by being successful in an internship at a local bakery. All of this is going on, and right now she doesn't have the support of her best friend Trevor because they're in a fight, even if he doesn't know why. My number one thing I want to say about this book is that it is timely. This is a book that we all need to be reading right now, and that all of our kids need to be reading right now. So, I do not believe in censorship, but I always want to just preface everything by giving you an idea of the kinds of questions that kids might bring up after or during reading this. And they are going to ask questions probably about criminal justice and racism. So those are some of the big issues that this book touches upon that are so interesting in the way that this author tackles that. So some of the big questions that this book raises are, what happens when the truth isn't black and white? Who is forgiveness for? Is it for the person forgiving or the person being forgiven? And what do we do, and what are our responsibilities when justice isn't being served? So, my first thoughts for the young readers out there, the people that this book is really for, is who's going to like it, right? So, this book is for kids who might be trying to understand some of the current events right now around the Black Lives Matter movement. It's also for kids who might be into baking, and it's for kids who like books that are centered around family and friendship. There's some very strong images here and pictures of these valuable, complicated, realistic family and friendship dynamics. It's also for true crime fans. So, though it explores a fictional case, it does make investigating a serious crime and uncovering injustices of the criminal justice system approachable for young readers. So I would recommend that for people who are interested in those kinds of topics. Now, I believe in need reads. And what that is wherever you are in your life, there's something that you need. You need information, you need experiences, you need questions answered. And every book can fulfill some sort of a need for somebody, right? So it's what you're looking for in your life right now, to fill a hole, to investigate a serious issue, to ask a question, to learn from somebody else's experience, to get a different perspective, to solve a problem. What do you need in your life? And the needs that this book might fulfill are readers who need to read about truth, justice, forgiveness, perseverance, family, and friendship. So if those are things that you're exploring, that you're having a hard time with, that you're wondering about, this book might be for you. Something that's unique about this book is that it plays around with structure a little bit. So because Zoe is communicating with her father, we get these great little sections that have letters in them, and I really enjoy that. So it's not completely an epistolary novel, which is told through letters, but it has letters sprinkled throughout it. So that was a little bit about what it might be like for a young reader. My personal reading experience, was I up all night reading this? Yes, I was. I stayed up way too late reading this book. How many times did I cry? I cried twice. And I'm not ashamed about it. It was moving. The characters were real. If a book can make me literally cry, I feel like this book has accomplished something. This book made me feel real feelings. With that being said, I didn't laugh that much. There were a few parts that were a little bit funny, but I didn't laugh out loud. So if that's something you're looking for, this book probably is not going to provide that, at least not for an adult. And I really liked that it had ups and downs throughout the whole book so that it kept the pace moving. I didn't find myself bored at any point because we had kind of three storylines going. And so the author did a really skillful job of popping between those different plots and making it interesting to keep reading. Overall, I have a rating system of Annabelles. Annabelle is my niece. So 5 Annabelles would be, I absolutely need Annabelle to read this book. 1 Annabelle would be, Annabelle can skip it. I'm going to give this book 4 Annabelles. And the thing about this book, the reason I'm giving it 4 Annabelles mostly is because I feel like it touches on issues that are so hard for us to talk to young people about, and it does it in such an artful way through this gripping story of Zoe Washington and her questions and her father and their family dynamics, and it's really beautifully done. So I also always review books based on their diversity. Now, let me just give this a little warning here. I do not expect a book to fill every column, to check every box, to have every kind of diversity there could possibly be. And even if it does, that doesn't mean it's a good book. But I do think it's important for us to know what kinds of diversity we might be getting from the books that we read so that we can have a well-rounded experience, a well-rounded library, so that we're getting lots of different perspectives. So in this book, you will absolutely find racial diversity. The main character is Black, and there's a large focus on how people of color are treated in the justice system. So she and most of her family are Black, so we have a lot of representation there. We have some white characters. We have a Hispanic character who's kind of alluded to, and we have an interracial couple in this book as well. In terms of family diversity, we do have a family that has a stepfather, and it's a really loving relationship, so that's shown really positively, and it just seems so natural and good and sweet. That's really beautifully done. In terms of age diversity, we have 3 generations in this story because Zoe is also quite close to her grandmother, and the grandmother has a huge part to play in the story. And so I do feel like we're getting some of that elder wisdom, that loving family, grandmother, cozy, cushy stuff that I really like. So we do have some age diversity. Gender, there's definitely a good mix of male and female characters, aside from the main character being female. All the side characters are, we have her best friend is a boy. She also has girl really close friends. And then we have her whole family and the background characters. In terms of socioeconomic diversity, there is some touching upon that when they talk about court-appointed lawyers and how some people don't have the ability to afford a good lawyer, and so they get stuck with a court-appointed lawyer who maybe isn't always doing as much as they could be doing for their clients. But other than that, I don't see that we have a lot of socioeconomic diversity in this book. Zoe does live in Beacon Hill in Boston, which, being from Massachusetts, I can tell you is a very ritzy part of Boston. So we see kind of the upper class schmoozy thing, but her family isn't like that. They seem like a very normal family, but I would say that they're probably wealthy based on where they live. I did not notice any of the following types of diversity. That doesn't mean they're not in there. I didn't notice them. LGBTQ, differently abled, cultural diversity, religious diversity, mental health, neurodiversity, or issues of citizenship. So I didn't see any of that, but again, we don't have to have everything. We can't have everything, and if we had everything, it might be too much. In terms of characters, we've got Zoe, she's going through this time in her life where she's changing. Of course, she's 12 years old. She's going to middle school, and she's super independent. She's justice-minded. She has a very close relationship with her family, and she's quite stubborn. So I really found myself liking her and feeling frustrated with her at sometimes, like, oh, come on, can't you see what you're doing? But I like it when books do that to me. So the rest of the characters, I just felt like it was such a warm book. Family was so lovingly portrayed here. They're so warm and care about each other so much and are so supportive. And I felt like this really showed healthy family dynamics. Everybody was super intelligent. Everybody was kind to each other, from the pastry people at the bakery to her family to people they meet along the way on their adventure. So I think that this book shows really healthy relationships. Zoe really has this 5-star team behind her. In terms of the setting, like I said, I'm from Massachusetts. This is set in Boston. So I felt like it was pretty well represented. Like I said, she lives in the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston, which is a ritzy area. They talk about going to Newbury Street, which is a famous shopping street in Boston, also very ritzy. And they get into there some issues of racism, like being followed around in stores and especially watched and things like that. Locals will notice that they talk about Harvard Square, Davis Square, JP Licks, which is a famous ice cream place. And something that's important about the setting in this text is that they specifically talk about the racism in Boston and how it's maybe more racist than other places. So I felt like the author, who I read is from Connecticut, maybe spent some time in Boston. And then something that I thought was super cool was that throughout the book, when Zoe is communicating with her father, he keeps sending her song ideas. And of course, I went onto Spotify and I was going to look up and listen to some of these songs today, when I thought somebody's probably already made this playlist, and I'm pretty sure it was the author. So if you go onto Spotify, there's a playlist called From the Desk of Zoe Washington, and it has all these great songs on it by Stevie Wonder, Boyz II Men, Jill Cole, Lauryn Hill. This just great playlist of songs that you're going to want to listen to as you read, maybe, or after you read. So overall, 4 out of 5 Annabelles for this book. Timely, read it with your kids, and in my next video I'll be talking about some teaching ideas for this book. So thank you so much for joining me here on Middle Grade Miss G. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back with more on From the Desk of Zoe Washington.